You know what that is? Discipline. Selfish.
No joke. We're legitimate.
Let's fucking do that. Then do it. Do it 100%, because I'm trying to.
We recognize that we are limitless.
You gotta be a champion to become a champion, right? Winning is a habit because we create habits that lead to good execution and success.
Welcome back to the Coaches Show, episode 75. I'm your host, Coach Mike Bianca of San Diego Dynasty. With me, as always, is my friend and coach, Ryan Gray of the Red Legion. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most important and often overlooked aspects of growing competitive paintball: how we take that weekend rec baller and help them to become a confident, tournament-ready player. Yeah, it's gonna get cool tonight. I can't wait to have this conversation, and I can't wait to hear from you guys in the comments. Joining us is a guy who's been doing exactly that for a couple of years now. Mike McGowan, my friend, owner of Prime Paintball down here in Leeds, Alabama. Mike's built probably one of the most beautiful fields in the country, as well as a strong culture to complement it at Prime. He does this by focusing on player development from the ground up. Okay. And tonight he's here to share what he feels works, what may not, and what every new player should be learning first. So we're going to have a great conversation about it. I can't wait to do it. We'll also talk about how fields and coaches can better bridge the gap between walk-ons and tournament teams, right? And why that's pretty essential for the future of our sport. First, we're going to discuss the Xball shenanigans from this past weekend. I had a front row seat for that, by the way, so I can't wait to get into that. This episode is brought to you by Max Sportswear. If you're a field owner wanting to up your presentation to your customers, get Maxed. Custom ref and team gear to make your field, team, and refs look amazing. Give them a call today. You won't regret it. And BKI, the best knowledge in paintball. Be sure to check out the upcoming summer camp. The sign-up link is in the comments. You can learn from the pros, shoot great paint, eat good food, and more than likely have a pretty unforgettable experience. So as I begin to wrap up this intro, I want to remind everyone once again that the Cincinnati Coaches Clinic info is out. The link for the sign-up is in the show description. The clinic will be hosted by Ryan and me, and we will cover game communication, box reads, initial calls, mid-game adjustments, closing point communication, creating a winning culture, very important, structuring effective practices, building discipline and accountability, setting and maintaining clear expectations. All right, Ryan, without further ado, what do you say we get this party started? Yeah?
Sorry, putting the registration link in the chat.
Oh, yes, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
All right, the chat's live, baby. Got everybody in there. How's everyone doing this evening?
Yeah, so tonight's episode, we kind of, you and I have talked about this a little bit, and then I keep hearing every time Tom, I think, gets on somebody's episode that's not ours, he talks about this. And so I think it's important that we keep kind of building on and developing ideas for how field owners, and really it's not just field owners' responsibility, it's our responsibility as players and coaches to help bridge this gap from the recreational side, to the first time kind of tournament player. And then once we get that player in, we want to keep them, right? So we want to help give them and give them a set of skills, kind of the foundational things that they need so that they don't get out there and just get completely obliterated, right? Because we want to hang on to them as long as we can. The more people that are playing this more frequently, the better it is for everybody. So I'm really excited about tonight's episode.
Yeah. I remember there was statistics. I used to own a field, and before I got into it, I was looking at the statistics of how many people were playing paintball, how much this type of it. And you had all that data back when the internet was still young. And anyway, I think it was 2006, 7, maybe. Yeah, very long story short, I believe at the time in America, there was on average 10.2 million people in America alone that had played paintball or were playing paintball per year. I think that number is now more around like 1.8 million now. So we had a serious bleed off, and that's something we need to address. And it starts at the local fields.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of that statistic and that data is that a lot of the paintball fields went away.
Yeah.
Right. Where there used to be a lot more paintball parks, there just aren't anymore. It's hard work. It's very thankless, to get out there and be mowing 4 to 5 days a week. I had 2 parks at one time here in Oklahoma, and I rode a mower for at this time of year. I rode a mower 4 days a week. You're just all the time standing in the sun, building things, and it's a pretty thankless job until the first time that player walks up. And you can see them walk into the staging area and they lift their goggles and they have that huge smile on their face. That's the thank you, right? That's that's how I would always get the kudos I needed,
Right.
To see them have a great experience. So, yeah, man, great guest tonight. Love talking to Mikey. So I'm happy he could make it work. It was kind of last minute.
It was
last minute.
We had a couple of different people we could call, and it just made sense. He's right down the road, and I was like, let's just get him on here. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah, and I was in Arkansas this weekend doing some jeeping with my buddies and camping, and got back late or kind of midday yesterday, and then had a ton of cleaning to do. My Jeep is still filthy. And then I knew you were in Utah, so let's talk about Utah.
Yeah, let's talk about Utah. So this past weekend, we were out in Lehi, Utah at Vendetta Paintball. Proprietor owner Seth Johnson also promoted this event, and it was Aftershock versus Dynasty at 15 BPS old school Xball, right? With 2 25-minute halves. We had a 15-minute halftime, and I can't wait for the latest Z-log to come out, because this thing's it's going to be a trip. This is the halftime show were gentlemen in banana suits doing one-on-ones. What? Anyway, so you have two big names going after it. And let me tell you, it got spicy. Todd Adamson and the boys came to play. And of course, Dynasty always comes to play. So it was a good time. We're out there, we're roping each other, but in between points and after the match, it's all friends, shaking hands and getting it on. But they definitely, the people who were there live to watch it, definitely got their money's worth and got to see the show. It was pretty fascinating stuff. So
how many folks were in attendance?
From what I could tell, it was, I think the count was around 90 to 100 people in attendance there. Right. And I understand there were a couple of issues with the live feed, but there is a gentleman who was there, a videographer, and I think he just put out, he was just walking around with his camera live and was filming all of it, right there. And he posted it to YouTube. And I think last I checked, it had like 7,500 views in like 15 hours. So
I watched it.
It's fine. And you even hear, you hear the guns, and the minute you hear those guns go, it's incredible. Right. So
it took me back.
It did. And then when you see a guy leave the field, he's wearing he's yellow completely.
Right.
It looks like he's got jaundice, but it was a good time. It was fun, had by all. Dynasty took the win, I believe, 13 to 11, 13 to 10. Yeah. So listen, we had gone up on them. We had them by 6 with I think 4.5 minutes left. And then Aftershock just started, here we go.
Yeah.
And, so it got spicy there at the end, and it was a good time. It was a really good time, and I loved getting to see everybody. And I made 3 new friends. We had some guests, just like Aftershock brought in some guests as well. You guys might have seen Mark Johnson from AC Diesel out there. He wouldn't let us recruit Kyle Spica for our team. So he says, no, Kyle's got to go to practice, which I found quite humorous. But I want to thank a big shout out to Mark Meiderman. From Seattle Uprising. He joined us. Great cat, man. I enjoyed getting to know him. Obviously, Daniel Camp from the New Orleans Hurricanes. It's fun. Always a pleasure to coach my own friend. Damian Vasquez from Energy Elite. He used to wear Dynasty Blue at one time. And then a gentleman who's flown under the radar for me, a gentleman by the name of Troy Erickson. I called him Son of Eric because, good Viking name. But Troy, formerly of, I believe, Aftershock and DMG, not Aftershock, Aftermath, and I think DMG at one time. But this kid was great. I mean, hey, he's ranked. I think he's a semi-pro player. Somebody needs to get this guy on radar, because legit dude, super intelligent, and what a great joy to be around and get to know him. So I want to thank those 4 people. I want to thank GI Sports. And guys, look, I know they sponsor my team, but I have to tell you, this was some of the best paint I've seen. That laser beams. That's why you see people wearing so many in one place, because it was laser beams, man. Paint was great. Absolutely great stuff. And again, thank you to Seth Johnson of Vendetta Paintball for putting this all on. Definitely a passion project.
So what are the things you think could have gone a little better? Like, in order for it to grow in the way Seth was talking last week, what are the things he needs to do differently?
Well, I think if you're going to have a stream of the event, then I think you need to put the work in. You really do. I mean, I've heard the argument, it was just $5, well, yeah, but if you're going to charge for it, then there's an expectation for some kind of, and from what I understand, there was some significant issues with the live stream. So maybe put a little bit extra effort into that live stream. That'll certainly help. If it's not going to be a certain level, then don't charge. Don't charge. Let people watch it and go to town, because I think there's some audio issues. And one of the beauties of 15 BPS is hearing those guns rip, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe even hearing the spiciness in between, between players, that sort of thing. So I think that would have been great. I will tell you, the people there live got the show. They had their popcorn and they were getting involved, after every point or something spicy would happen. They were cheering and whooping and hollering, as we say down here in Alabama. Yeah, great, And so, I would spend a little bit more time on that. Maybe talk to some more vendors, get some more vendors involved, turn it into a little bit of a show. I loved his idea of having a halftime show. Originally, I believe there was a band that was supposed to play. I thought, what a great idea. That'd have been awesome. But maybe get some vendors out there, maybe have a little vendors row, tiny thing there. Make it an event, right? If you're going to have these two, teams go after it, make it so people can do stuff before, during, and after the event. Make it more than just the hour-long deal. Maybe add some other components to it, and then maybe have some kind of special aspect where people who just watch that you have a shooting gallery where someone can shoot one of the guns at the 15 BPS and see what it's like. And, just a couple of things that I was just thinking off the top of my head, but everybody had a lot of opinions and everyone had a lot of ideas, but Seth's the one who pulled the trigger. So.
Yeah. And he's the one who put his money in, right? Mm-hmm. And made it happen. Things like that. I think, I don't know if we were still live when I mentioned it to Ryan, but like, we're so used to seeing things like that, like in the front end, and they begin like this promotional tour and they start really promoting it. And then it kind of fizzles out. Right. And it goes away and we don't ever see it. So, it's like Angel Eyes. Yeah. And we saw those stupid things for like 2 years and it never happened. Right. Never happened. So I'm glad that he did it, and hopefully he'll do it again and take what he's learned and make it better.
I do have to send a shout out to Chris Sawtell. All right. Now, Chris Sawtell, everyone may or may not know that name. He is part of the Dynasty Champions Club. He helps our pit. He's an incredible human being with a beautiful soul. He set up a live feed of the Dynasty pit. And so and all the Dynasty Champion Clubs people could watch what we were saying and doing in between points, during the points, just before the match, right after the match. And I haven't watched that yet, and I need to go check myself.
You guys should do that at the NXL.
We should.
And then I'll become a Dynasty Champions Club member.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a couple of people who'd probably want to see what's happening in that pit.
Sure.
How we're doing things. Yeah. But it, that I got to send up my hats off to him. He did it such a great job. So that was an option that people could have, maybe do. But something else that, if you're going to do that kind of, have the video, maybe at least have a host, right? So like in between the points, have like a sideline guy that, you swing to the sideline guy and he's like, all right, this is what just happened, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be in the Dynasty pit next, or I'll be in the after shot, kind of like the NXL used to do with their, hey, we're going to go down on the sidelines and check it out. And, maybe do that, something to that extent. Even if you don't have someone speaking during the match, have somebody speaking in between points and kind of talk.
Sure.
Keep it entertaining.
Yeah. Good feedback.
Yeah. There'll be more of these, I'm sure. There'll be more of these, I'm sure. Yes, I am ready. Let's go. I'm stoked about this. So,
well, introduce your friend. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce my friend, former teammate, former professional player, and now member of the Bear Ridge Factory Team Semi-Pro, currently winning their division with 2 second places. Sounds familiar. Anyway, I'd like to introduce everyone to my friend, Mike McGowan. Mike, welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm excited about the show.
Good evening, man.
So he's wearing a Prime
making
shirt.
It work.
He's wearing a Prime shirt with the grass. I love it.
Yeah, the infamous grass shirt. You know, sometimes you hit a home run, and the grass shirt is loved by all, it seems. So it's good. It's good.
Perfect. All right, let's get into this.
Your boys are already popping off in the chat with the Bears.
Here they come. Here come the Bears.
Yeah?
All the bear heads we get.
Yeah. The jungle lizards, I'm sure, will rear their heads sometime soon.
Awesome.
So I've not joined the chat. I'll be. Oh yeah, there's the bear heads right there. Look at them go. So.
Well, Mikey, why don't you give our audience a little background on you first, and then maybe talk a little bit about Prime Paintball, and then let's get into this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been playing paintball since 1998. I started off in backyards, borrowing guns. I think there was a field out here, kind of a friend of my brother got me into it. It was just me and him and 2 other guys at some like abandoned warehouse with a big tractor tire field. It was when all the fields were made with just stuff they got from the junkyard, right? And he gets a pro light and I get some PGP thing, and then I get the pro light, and we're playing almost in the dark in this warehouse, and but I just loved it from the beginning, and every birthday party I had after that was a paintball birthday party. And then you're playing, and then you're playing more, and then you want to get, okay, can I get some paint cheaper? Okay, I'll ref, all right. Okay, you start with the Walmart gun, right? I had my Stingray 2, and then I'm doing some shady deal in my middle school to get the new 10-inch barrel that it didn't screw on. It had pins that safetied it in there, and then you get the view loader on the top, and then you get the spider, and then you get the cocker, then the other cocker, and next thing you know, they ask you to try out at the local field, on the kids team. Then those kids stop playing, and then the older guys, which is funny to think about now because they're all in their mid-20s, recruit you onto the team, and so like I'm not some gigantic dude, but at the time that's where I was little Mikey, because I was probably 100 pounds soaking wet at the time, but I love playing, and I didn't mind getting shot either. So it was definitely a time where there were a lot more ruffians, almost everybody had like the gauged ears and the tattoos, and my parents were kind of like, who are these characters? But fortunately all the guys just happened to be some of the best guys ever. And it didn't take long for Mike Bianca to be one of those guys, from playing against him in some 3-mans and 5-mans at what was called the Aces series out here. And even though it was an Alabama series, it would end up in Mississippi, South Alabama, North Alabama. My first tournament was an MSPA with like 110 teams, hyperball, woods ball, a box field, a town field. And that was in 2000, I think. But you get exposed to all kinds of stuff. Team Extreme, shout out to Barney, shout out to Keith Roll. Rocky was out there. I don't know. I think they had some hodgepodge team called like Electric Funeral or something like that, and they're shredding everybody. And, we have to play Team 2 Extreme on the field. And I've got a Spider TL with a 16-inch All-American barrel, and they roll over us, to the chagrin of the crowd, and then you're 13 and you walk across some pods that have some, imagery on the outside, but it was great for me to mature as a younger guy, to be honest. You don't want to let the older guys down if you're 13, 14, 15, and the other guys are 24, 25. If you're doing something odd, they're going to bust your chops, but you're their young guy on the team. And it's been fun as you go through the pro ranks. A lot of those guys have the same story. Yep. Yes, I was the kid that drove 2.5 hours to practice when other people wouldn't. Yes, I was the guy that was on the team with all the older guys, but I didn't care. I was treated no differently. And that's it. When you're a 14, 15, 16-year-old guy, that's exactly what you want. You want to be accepted into the tribe, by the I won't say elderly, let's just say the more experienced veteran tribesmen. So that was my path. And gosh, been playing paintball ever since. Formed, 2008. I got to play with Mike Bianca here yet again, after all the 10-man days, we reformed. And then in 2010, when all the fields were closed from the 2008 collapse, we joined forces, and my family started the field Prime here. And that was really out of necessity. My family had the property, and they said, "Oh, well, Mom, I'm talking to Mike Bianca and Daniel Jones and, all these guys from, those days," because there was a lot of really good Alabama players on it. And they said, "Oh, we'll put a field on the property." I said, "You don't have to do that. We'll put a field on the property. You don't have to do that. We're putting a field on the property." And so they laid the sod in 2009, and then we started playing in 2010. Yep. And we made it work. And I didn't think I'd be a small business owner, but eventually we needed to get paint at a certain cost, or we couldn't play. We needed to get compressors that were bigger. We needed to do more and more and more. And so out of necessity, brewed the field as it stands now. It definitely didn't start off that way. A lot of blood, sweat, tears, a lot of jokes, but I'm so thankful for all those guys, early days, Bianca, Griff, the McDonald family, Chris Rourke, Danny Jones, JP, Jeff Wise. Help me, Mike. Am I forgetting anybody? Hollis Edwards. There was a cool mix. It was a mix yet again of these older working class guys that what money they had, they were putting into paintball. And that's what I remember from the days from the beginning all the way through early Prime was, hey, we're broke, but we love paintball. And by God, we're going to be good. We're going to train, and we're going to have a great time beating people. And this is going to be fun. So that's really been the model. I've been very fortunate. I was not a team. I had to wait till my pro days to be a team hopper, as it were, or earn the Thanos gloves, as my BR teammate and the Jungle Lizards guys like to say. If you've seen that meme running around, I've shared it. It's pretty good. But my early days, I really only played on about 2 teams, and Mike was there for a whole bunch of that. And eventually we peaked in 2014, having 1 or 2 D5 teams, a D4 team that won a national event, and then the D2 team. And the D2 team was doing everything it could to train up those young guys. And by World Cup, we had both teams in finals. And unfortunately, we earned what is now a vintage second place. And by the time Prime was over, by about 2018, we accrued 7 second places, maybe 8. I don't like to think about that too much, but the guys will see this shirt now that we've won an event on BR Factory. There's not as much stigma on the second place Prime stuff, but we excelled so they could come behind us. I know that for a fact. A lot of those guys have gone on to play pro. Evan Manners is still active. Timmy Roberts is on NYX now.
Justin Bailey,
Aaron Pate. That's right. Bailey's back with his boys, now he's playing alongside
Who's that?
me. Justin Bailey.
Yeah,
he played with.
No,
okay,
stop
okay,
it.
all right.
You
well, for those that don't know,
I'm going to get texted now, Ryan. Thanks.
Yeah.
No, but Mikey, what that whole story, fantastic story, well done, well said. But that whole story really shows you what was the catalyst. So obviously you were hooked, right? What was it about the sport that hooked you, and how can we recreate that for these first time people that come out?
There's a few things that were out of my control that worked out. I mean, number one being that I was pretty good at it. I don't know where that comes from. As a little kid, I was pretty good at hide and seek, and then when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, you're playing cops and robbers, make believe. But by the time you're 12, 13, you want to do something kind of real. And paintball was that. They didn't have airsoft at the time because right? You had to call them markers. They couldn't be guns. It was too much stuff in the news that were new phenomenons, so on, right? Like,
Right.
you know, that they didn't want associated with it, which is ironic now, because now it's mag fed and how real can it look? And a lot of kids are playing airsoft instead of paintball. But I think I was lucky enough that the team was forming then, and so they asked me, and then I played some one-on-ones just to try out for that kids team, and then that kids team had a father team, you know, that was Team Godspeed, you know, and there was Godspeed Kids for about, I don't know, 6 months, and then I got to join. As far as what wouldn't have worked, you know, I don't know if those guys were more bullying as opposed to wanting me to be on the actual team. I think they're excited to have a young guy on the team. I think that's what a lot of people can underestimate, is how much those guys actually want you there, you know? So that was cool. You know, sure, there were other younger guys that joined in every once in a while, but for the most part, I was the odd one out, being the younger one on the team.
So would you say that you hit the lottery then with the crew that you fell in with? Because you know, we talked about characters earlier, used the term characters earlier. And back then in that time, right, paintball was what we would say is sex appeal sold a lot of paintball, right?
Yeah.
You had the bikinis, you had the cheerleaders, you had all the stuff, right? So I mean, now, right, we've moved away from that, obviously. It's because, you know, we're really trying to push this legitimized sport. I feel it is a legitimate sport, 100%. Some people feel that in order for it to be legitimized, it has to be on TV. And that's very much, you know, could be true. I'm just saying that we are such a dynamic and incredible sport, right? I love it, obviously. So I want to grow it, just like everybody else who's probably listening to this show. And the simple fact is, trying to tap into those different things that you experienced, how do we recreate it over and over and over again?
Yeah, one experience I can think of was one of my birthday parties. I went out and played at Paintball Quest, which is now back. It's Alabama Paintball Quest, but it's still Quest. There's a group of guys, OJ, Tyler, Will. They've got 3 fields in Alabama now. Just opened up another one about 30 minutes from Prime now. And they've got sort of a franchise model, but they've resurrected that field. But at the time, there was a field owner that everybody knew out here named Roy Hatch. He and his wife ran that field. And I had a birthday party out there. There's the picnic tables, the usual setup. But he was out watching this game in this thick forest area. And I think they grew some bamboo out there. And I could hear this noise. So I kind of stalked these guys for a couple hundred yards, circled around, and my position just ended up being perfect. And it was funny because it was a couple buddies, my buddy James and I think my buddy Will. Their paint had fallen to the ground and they're just picking it up by hand. And I'm 40 yards away, circled over the top of them. And then I just let loose and cap off, you know, 2 or 3 of these guys. And then I'm just loading by the picnic table, you know, 50 yards away from the trailer. And Roy Hatch screams out, "Who's that young player I just saw circle around on the field for 10 minutes and stalk these guys? I've got 200 free paintballs for you right here." And it was the paint that was in the jar.
Yeah.
Right? If you remember that Brass Eagle paint in the jar. And I was super excited. I come running up and the people there clapping and I was like, you know, in retrospect, that was a nice touch. Like, okay, hey, I'm observing. That was fun for me. That enthusiasm transmits in. Of course I'm coming back and playing paintball again. That was a blast. So I got reinforcement, you know, right there from paintball. You know, some recognition and a little bit of free paint.
I love it. Ryan, did you want to hop in and ask any specific questions on that front?
No.
Okay.
I think he answered it really well. I'm just making notes. Like I have some when he gets deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I wanted to throw this up real quick. I thought this was great. Derek Rupert, my son and I just started playing. It's been a blast. Great community. That's the key, in my opinion. And Mikey, what you just said, right? That was a nice touch. Hey, who was that young man? I got enjoyment out of it. I want to make sure he gets enjoyment out of it. There's a positivity, right? The community has to bring a positivity to this. I don't want to say culture of violence. That's a terrible thing to say, but
kind of is.
But it is, right? We are using markers to eliminate an opponent, right?
We're hunting each other.
We are.
Yeah.
But if we bring this positive reinforcement, this positive mentality to all the different aspects that this sport teaches you, it teaches you resilience. It teaches you, determination, grit, thought, right? Strategic and tactical thinking, all these different aspects. I think that's, if we're able to create this for parents or children, or just even new people of the video game community, hey, you want to play it for real? You want to do this for real? And, that same, dopamine kick you get from playing a video game. Look, you can do that here. Get outside and put this marker in your hand and go have a ball with your boys, and then create the community, to your point. And you were about to talk about APC. And now I'm not purposely promoting just APC, because I'm sure there are paintball clubs in every state, in every area. That one aspect you were about to talk about, the Alabama Paintball Club, from what I understand, and I'm familiar with the guys, I know all the guys, I don't want to do the pitch for you, but the long story short is, this is a paintball club that is trying to grow the sport by bringing all different manners of paintball enthusiasts in, from new to old to what. So what is the purpose of creating a club or a community in this area or any area to generate that? I think that's where it's got to start, a grassroots thing.
Yeah. I mean, Alabama Paintball Club, we got Chris Powers in the chat here. That's him. Sort of started from what Jason Hansen has been doing to kind of bring in the 10-man guys into the fold. So, right, we're aware of how that phenomena has just skyrocketed, right? With the Iron City Classic starting, what was that, 6 years ago now? Mm-hmm. Something like that. Those guys are in their late 40s, mid 40s, wherever they're at. They're coming back in. Maybe they got sons that want to play. Hey, I want to come back. I want to play, but I don't want it to be this ultra athletic thing. I want it to be a little more like the softball beer league kind of thing.
Barbecue
paintball.
Yeah. The local dentist sponsors the shirt, and we come out. We got paint at a good price. Hey, we're gonna throw everybody in there. It's gonna be a good time. If you haven't played in 10 years or 10 months, it's great. Come on out. It's just we're here to have fun, because it's just a good time to get out with a lot of guys in that community environment and shoot around, run around a little bit. It doesn't matter if you're 60 or you're 16. Come out and play. Or in the case of young Timmy, how old's young Timmy Bianca
10.
now? 10. He got out there a couple points, and I think he shot at least one person. So
he did.
And I know he was thrilled to get that opportunity, always seeking an opportunity, but the APC thing's a good bridge, because there are the guys that are into the mechanical, and then the guys that are into the tournaments, and there's a little bit of a oil and water sort of, I don't know what you'd call it. There's not like an animus, but just normally they don't have any excuse to mix, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a different conversation with a different crowd, different market of people that have different objectives with their paintball, And I recognize this just professionally. They're the guys that want to play with only their friends. I learned this on Prime too. We had the kids team. Mm-hmm. Those kids, they won their tournament with their friends. They stopped playing. If they're not playing with my friends, forget about it. And then there are the guys that are like, I use paintball as a personal challenge so that I can excel, so that I can improve. And I use this as a vehicle to let out. That's my personal outlet. And yes, if I can do it with my friends, awesome, but I don't have to. If I got to fly to California, if I got to fly to Florida, if I got to fly to Virginia, that's what they're going to do, because they have paintball as that, they have that need, in many cases, an obsession to compete and win and challenge themselves to get better, and then use that even as a vehicle, as an example for how to get better at other things. So I think it's just recognizing what that audience is there for. And the Alabama Paintball Club is really there for fun, for that community, for that camaraderie. It's not for the competition. And that's fine. That's good. Like, I've had a great time at a 10-man. In fact, you got to kind of figure out how to transition. Wait, I can sort of unlock, I can sort of back off and just let this be a good time, because there's 10 of us out here and the matches are 12 minutes long, and we're in the woods and we're messing around, and you know, a lot of old paintball heads and legends out there. So I think knowing that audience is good, and catering to an audience that's there, that's willing to play, I think. And shout out to Powers for the work that he's done, because certainly out here in Alabama, one person's efforts can make all the difference, you know, and some people are willing to pick up that torch and put the work in and make the contacts and set the schedules and make sure all the elements of success are there. And namely, it's communication, which just requires diligence and commitment. So I think for any given team, right? Usually teams fold because the captain is over it. I'm tired of contacting guys for practice. I don't want to, you know, it takes too much. I don't want to front the money for the hotels. Or it is that guy that's like, no, I'm excited to front the money for the hotels and all that. So you guys still have me good on audio
100%,
here?
100%. You're good. We got you. Yeah.
I might have lost you on the ears, so let me fix that.
We can hear you.
We can hear you fine. So, you know, you talked about the bridge. There's actual question in here from Chris Powers, actually, and I thought this might be a good transition, and we can rein it back in the other direction if we have to. But you made the comment, the bridge, and if you can't hear me, so we might post this up real quick, and you can see it. But and I see that, Ryan. Good deal. Let's do this. So Chris Powers comes in and says, huge thanks to the coaches show for showing love to Alabama, but we really appreciate support. Big shout out to Mike for everything he's doing. That's not the one that I had starred. Where did it go? So there it is. That's the one I wanted to show. Chris Powers' question: what's the best way to bridge the gap between walk-on mechanical players in the tournament scene? Still trying to figure that one out. I personally, and Ryan, what do you think about this? I personally think that the mechanical players actually have their own, in a way, tournament scene as it is. Correct?
Totally. Yeah. I think, first of all, Chris, great question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes back to what Mike said, and that's what are their goals, right? What's the intention of play? So if they're out there to play a more barbecue style of paintball, there's no need for them to transition from mechanical to something else. If they're loving what they're doing and they're playing on a consistent basis, there's no need for them to transition. I think what we were kind of talking about with transitioning the recreational player to tournament play includes those guys, right? They are a segment of the game that there is an offering for. So you do have the ICPL, you do have standalone 10-man events, you do have 7-man open at the NXL events. Like there's lots of mechanical opportunity for them to play and scratch the competitive itch while at the same time not having to go play Xball, right?
Right.
So what we're kind of, I think, really focused on is how do you take a player who may be a little younger, right? So let's say 15 to 22 or 23, and that player be a pretty regular recreational player. Let's say they come 4 times a year, right? And we want to transition that 4-time-a-year player to start being interested in tournament paintball, right? Whether it's D6 Xball or some sort of entry into that, or mechanical. I think either way is awesome. What we're really trying to do is increase frequency of play, right? So if we look at, we were talking about this in the green room, and I'm going to have Mikey kind of shoot some statistics back out, but there were, if you look at the frequency in which people play. So let's take a birthday party. I'm going to come once a year and play at my birthday party. Maybe I come once to my birthday party and I come to my buddy's birthday party, and so I came twice that year. Otherwise, I don't play at all, right? And then same thing with a church group or football group or a corporate outing, whatever the case may be. Then you look at your walk-on recreational players who are going to play once every month to once every 2 months, right? So that the frequency of that player is 6 to 12, right? A tournament paintball player who is playing some sort of mid-range divisional paintball, they play paintball 2 to 3 times a month. Sometimes 4 days in a month, right? Sometimes more if they're intention is to play at a higher level, they may be playing more. So I think what we're talking about is trying to broaden the spectrum of how we do it and collect ideas. And Chris, you're right on the money with your question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, like, what we're talking about is any of that kind of tournament paintball. We're good with all of it, right? We just want to talk about ideas, things that have worked, things that haven't. So,
right. And we've lost Mikey there for a minute. Obviously, he's having some technical problems. But just to clarify, Chris Powers says, just to clarify, I meant how do we bridge the gap between walk-on mech players in the tourney scene, not transition, just connect the two better. I think it goes right back to what Ryan's saying is frequency. The more you play the game, the more opportunities you're going to be exposed to different aspects of the game, right? And so those different aspects of the game hook you for whatever reason they may hook you. So I think ultimately what we've got to consider there, Chris, is, just get them in the door, get them there, right? And let's not forget our scenario brethren, right? Our scenario brethren, that's where I essentially started. I started in the woods. I loved going to those big games and, being part of a squad or a team and, having an objective and doing all this great stuff. It was so much fun. And I remember when I saw my first speedball, technically, right? And I remember thinking, well, that's accuracy by volume. There's no talent in that, And then the first time I played it, I went, I get it. Now I understand the rush, right? So the key is, it's kind of like when you take a friend who's never had sushi before. Sushi's awesome. They're going to love sushi, but never eat sushi for the first time by yourself. Take somebody who's done it and knows what to get and what to try and kind of ease you in there. And so that's what I feel like it is. I think we need to start taking our friends for sushi when it comes to paintball.
Turn off your BLE. I don't know what he's saying. He must be talking to Mike.
He must be talking to Mikey.
So I do want to pause for a second, though, and just mention how California, what Mike just said was, like, this dude has been coaching Dynasty for like a few months, and he's so California that his reference was sushi. Like all the great food out there, and he chooses sushi.
Well, the great food here in the South, right? I mean,
what a Dynasty thing to do.
Oh, dude, stop.
You guys eat so much sushi.
Joe Barrett.
Sell out. Thank you, Caesar.
Listen, I have not sold out anything. Matter of fact, I can't wait for them. We're going to get them down here, and we're going to go shoot real guns. We're going to let them do all that stuff. It's going to be a good time. Introduce them to Southern Hospitality.
Mike, can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Cycled through a few different headphones. Just had to restart the feed.
That's okay.
I even did the test, and it does this jingle, and it's like, sounds like you can hear us, and it's like, why? No, I can't. I can't hear anything. So we're back. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Welcome. All right. Yeah. So where we kind of left off, we were talking about. So Chris Powers asked, how do we transition recreational / mech players into playing mech tournaments, was the question that he clarified for us later. Let's kind of talk about some of the things that you've done. Let's start with the successful things. Like, here's how I've been able to bridge the gap between recreational player to tournament player. How did that start in the beginning? And again, let's just kind of talk about the things that work, and then we'll talk about 4 or 5 things maybe that didn't work well.
Yeah. I think it's just like anything else, where it's just starting with a good attitude, being welcoming, being hospitable, inviting people in, remembering their name. I think the big one is following up with people. Hey, did you enjoy it? Hey, we're going to be practicing again the next time, right? People want to feel wanted out there. And frankly, we want more people playing. So I feel like that's the big one that I'll kick myself for not doing, is just following up with people on their experience and trying to get them into the next one.
Service after the sale.
Yeah. I don't know how many of you guys watch Bar Rescue, right? But he's got the whole thing about, like, we use different color napkins about how many times they've come, because at a restaurant, you're not catering to the first visit or the second visit, but you get them to come 3 times. The chances of them coming back finally get above, 50%. So if you can get them out there 2 times, 3 times, That's bigger than just getting them out the one time, because it's not a one and done scenario. We can go more on that. But I think just getting people over the hump. I mean, one thing that's great is that I see from the players is how welcoming they are for new players that want to come in. It's like the guys want to bring people in. So you can kind of activate some of those guys by saying, hey, you old head, can you watch this kid for me? Because I got to run and make sure the other field's going, this compressor's working. Can you watch this kid come in, jump in?
So you're talking about culture.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
That's culture.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like when a lot of the Atlanta guys in the chat, Georgia guys in the chat will remember Mario Moresco, right? Yes. New Jersey guy, but he's in the South and it works. Why does it work? Because it's his family and because hospitality is universal, right? It's like, it's an ancient virtue for a reason, right? Guests are meant to feel welcome in a strange new land kind of thing. And paintball is definitely that for the uninitiated. So why not have it feel like you're part of this? Hey man, come step inside, break some bread, shoot some paint with us. It's all fun. It's a good time, make sure things aren't too chippy. I kind of have, if I had some team rules or field rules, yeah, sure. I'd have the don't be a jerk, right? That's a big one, but also don't be soft either. Right. So I think we like that. If somebody's too sensitive, maybe paintball isn't for them. No need to force the issue. But I feel like if they got here, it's because they want to be here. Sometimes you get the birthday scenarios where you get a dad that's too excited to get their 12-year-old in the paintball, and so as a field owner, I feel like you got to recognize that and be like, all right, hey, kid, just go over here, shoot some paint. It's a good time. If you hit people, just, communicate with your buddies, find your way to have fun with it. You don't have to like undercut some parent out there in front of them, right? Let's not get crazy. But you probably 10% of those dads are out there trying to live through their kids, But then you got the other end of the spectrum where the dad is just there strictly for the kid. He's like, I got to talk to Clayton Rosardo's dad, Canadian guy, great guy.
Oh,
the whole family thing. The girlfriend was there. The brother that he subbed in for with a broken wrist. They both play for Sea Dogs, pro guys. But I started asking his dad, Clayton's father, Mr. Rosardo. I was like, so were you into sports, right? Because Bart Yakimek, he was into semi-pro hockey, right? Gets the kids into paintball. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Like intense sport. We're shooting people and we're doing this as a family. This is great. But his dad was like, no, I had to work, my family, we couldn't afford to do all these other things, but I knew my kid loved it. So I just did everything I could to piece it all together for him, and those are just the best people that are there because their kid wants to play. They'll go out and do it. And you get other parents where, hey, you're going to have to earn it. We don't have $120 times two. We don't have $240 a week to spend on paintball, but can you find other ways? And they want to find ways to get the paint cheaper and all that. So all that's to say is, you take what you're being given. You don't try to force anybody into loving paintball. You just kind of meet them where they're at and you go from there. You don't have to force them to try to dive into the snake and do all this, but it is good to push them beyond their limits as a young player. And I feel like fearlessness is the big key from D5 and below. I mean, Bianca was key as a coach for getting the young kids enthusiastic about it. Like, they're way more, when they're 14, 15, this isn't give me the info and the analysis so I can learn how to pick this guy apart in the chess game. This is, let's go, let's eat red meat together and have oh my gosh, you ran me to the 50 snake off break and I made it. And then you reinforce it, it's just like joining anything else, whether if people out there had their fraternity experience, it's just like you remember their name, you welcome them back, you keep bringing them in and you work from there. As far as any other specific tactical stuff, always have a extra setup ready if you can that somebody can borrow. If you're not playing that day, have your gear ready. If somebody's played for the first time, it's been great actually having my setup there that they can shoot. And yeah, okay, as a field owner, it's going to cost you however many dollars to let them shoot 4 or 5 loaders of paint. But man, do those guys love going from that EMAC to that 10.5 BPS of whatever gun you're shooting. They just love shooting that machine gun. It's visceral. It overrides their neocortex straight to that reptile brain, and they might be the ones that are getting into it. So, you know, I'd love to. I wish I could do it in one. You know, they play 1 or 2 times, and I say, hey, that guy right there, he actually really gets paintball. You think he'd want to play some 3-mans, and it's sort of like they can't. They're not in a position to play all the time. You know, but I will say the money aspect of paintball, I've really come around to believing that that's mostly an excuse. When you discover what parents are spending on travel baseball, on golf, on let's go bigger money, their daughters on horseback riding. It doesn't matter what it is. When they get competitive at something, that stuff gets expensive on your money and your time. And I'm not a parent, so y'all could speak to this way better than I can. But that was what really allowed me to be guilt-free with my family as a kid. You know, Mama Prime, she said, you know, I got an older sister and an older brother, and they said, Michael, you can get whatever. You've been playing paintball for 5 years now. You can get whatever paintball gun you want to. You know, of course, I'm looking at all the catalogs, and I know exactly what I want, right? I want the free flow mini cocker with the acid wash.
yes.
And the mini flow, you know, whatever, max flow tank, 48 cubic. Of course, that's what I want. And it's like, but this is, you know, at the time, this is a $1,400 paintball. No, Michael, the greens fees for your brother to play, you know, all that stuff. It was like, okay, I can chill out about this a little bit and not feel like I'm burdening my family, you know. And there are other families where that's more of a, you know, I was blessed. I didn't have to worry about that as much, but there are other guys that, like, they're just not going to do that. They're eager to grow up and, like, I'm 18. I need to have a job. I need to support myself. But then there's other guys that you don't have to fight uphill financially. But for the most part, I think that can be a hand wash for, I'm not going to put in the effort to transition people from playing paintball some of the time to playing paintball with a community of guys that they're going to have even more fun with, you know, in tournaments and so on.
And you touched on something very important there. I love your take about the cost. That's fantastic take. I think the other take that a lot of people, and you might remember the Ozvaths. So we had a young man by the name of Nolan Ozvath. He played for the Prime program, and his father came out and essentially interviewed me and Mikey on whether or not he wanted his son to be around this type of people, right? Now, his son had played paintball before, but we were having tryouts, and his dad was like, oh, okay, my son wants to play paintball competitively. Now, here's the interesting aspect for it, Ryan and Mike, and our listening audience. Nolan was an outstanding baseball player. Nolan could have gone, right? He easily, right? He was on the high school team. He could have done, he was very serious about his baseball. Okay. But something about paintball hooked him and took him away from baseball. And I think that's another one of our big hurdles. How do we compete against the mountains of other sports that are traditionally accepted as the norm? Your football, your baseball, your basketball, your wrestling, right? Your tennis, your soccer, heck, your horseback riding, right? Especially here in the South, that sort of thing, right? It's how do we do that? And I think that's why we're seeing such a push for us to get to TV, get to these shows, show the beauty of our sport, show how it can be this incredible sport that people would be willing to invest that money in and become competitive in.
That's what I was going to say. The difference, Mikey, is like my daughter played travel volleyball. We spent $15,000 a year for her to play volleyball between club dues and private lessons and jump training and, you know, all the things that you have to do. But she got into one of the most prestigious universities in America because of that. Right. So, like, now don't get me wrong. I've done the math. I could have just paid for her to go to that university. Now, she might not have gotten in, right? Because the volleyball did help, right? So the difference is in those other sports, those more traditional sports, is there is this thing out there, and I'm just kind of building on what Mike was saying. There's this thing out there that people can see that has real value, whether it's some sort of scholarship, opportunities to play, for volleyball, like the girls can go over to Europe and they make good money over there playing volleyball in Europe. There's now a U.S. women's league. They can now get paid. Before it was just college, right? It was like, hopefully you can get into a really good school. But again, if I do the math, I could just pay for her to go to a really good school, keep all that money in my pocket. But we didn't do that. So all of those are really good points. And I think once somebody does play paintball and they do get the hook, those are the people we're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. It's not the person who necessarily, and I hear this a lot, people are like, how do I take the birthday party and get them to play tournament paintball? You don't. Yeah. You don't. You take the kid who came to the birthday party, and now you've seen him 2 or 3 more times, and he's come and done your walk-on session, right? He's been to your walk-on session. He's showing promise. He's aggressive. He's young. You can see that he's not the normal recreational player, right? Which is the player who's going to be more passive, sit in the back a little more. The kid like you who's going to run around everybody and shoot him in the back and then laugh about it walking off, that's the kid we're talking about. Right. How do we get that kid to go from here to over here? And Danny Court's in the chat. They have an awesome field, Doodlebug Sports, where they do a lot of this, I'm sure. But where we can get that player to go into the next phase, which is tournament paintball. And you've mentioned a couple of solutions there. You talked about like handing somebody your own equipment, which is great. In the green room, you talked about providing, a few setups that those types of players could use to jump into some tournament games. And sorry, I'm kind of rushing you along now so we can move on to the next part. I apologize. Yeah. And also I wanted to mention a couple of things you said earlier. Like with Prime, you guys had a D2 team. You had a younger team that you guys were developing. So it sounds like you have this kind of culture of like, I need to make sure I bring up this next round, right? This next group behind me needs to be right behind me, right? And I think that speaks a lot about probably where you are today. I love the idea of special recognition. Like if somebody does something outstanding, I own 2 parks here in Oklahoma. I would do that, right? So like if somebody had like some killer move or something, I'd give them a grenade or a t-shirt or, bag of paint or whatever, to make them feel good, right? And nobody ever clapped, which would have been cooler if they did. But I think that's a great idea, right? Like that could be the hook, makes them feel a part of. Yeah. And I think the follow-up thing you mentioned is massive. Yeah. Massive, right? Yeah. That's that second or third touch that we can have after the player has been there, so they know like, hey, we really enjoyed having you, I think speaks volumes, yeah. Right? Especially for the video game kid, right? The kid who's at home, locked up on the video game, kind of the only communication they get is through the headsets. I think those kids, that second, third touch is a big deal. Yeah, big deal.
I think there's one other aspect to it that I think paintball's really starting to do a good job of doing. And I see this with guys on Dynasty all the time. I see Ryan Greenspan do this all the time, is the social media aspect. Those characters, those personalities in paintball. We have several people in the professional division that are just such incredible people that if we can get them out front a little bit, get those people exposed to it and let them see it's the whole package, right? We're packaging this, we're marketing this. And I think the personality's getting out there to a lot of these people. Now, there's some people that I wouldn't want to put out there, obviously, right? But then there's definitely those that I think do such a good job selling, A, the beauty of the sport, B, what it taught them, right? If we can talk about the positive things, get those stories out about what it taught me, what I learned from it, just like all those stories about what baseball taught them, and what, this sport taught them, and all this work they put in. So it's so much to do, but it's very doable. And we are already, I think someone that said it earlier we've got the hooks. We just have to get them in the water. Right.
Yeah. I mean, who was it? Hollywood Sports. They came out with that field that was, I'm blanking on it. It wasn't dust. It was one of those the house with the school bus. Boys in the chat,
Yeah.
you help me out. You know,
Yeah,
it's
it
like
was-
when you can make that. Like I've always wanted to have like a movie set. People come out and make the gulag from Call of Duty, right?
That's
And
in
it's
Chicago.
paintball.
Nuketown.
Do they have
It's-
that? Okay, yeah.
And that's
Nuketown,
actually in
thank you.
Chicago, not Hollywood Sports.
Oh, okay, right on.
Yeah.
Shout out to Chi-Town there. Yeah, I mean, and if you can make that sort of virtual experience real, if you could take something cool from John Wick and be like, "This is the John Wick house.
Yes.
Get busy on the bad guys." You know, that's just a cool way to, because there really is no substitute. I know a lot of people are like, the kids don't want to get outside, but it's like there are people that want to go outside, get active. You feel better. You know, that's much better. I know. And Ryan, I know you wanted to get to kind of the flip side of the coin of what not to do. You know, I was just listening to a podcast today, right? That's the Charlie Munger thing, is like kind of the law of inversion. Like, okay, you want to grow paintball? What do you want to do? Well, if you wanted to kill paintball, what would be the best way to do that, right? Well, do nothing, right? Let people have a bad attitude, like not really care about it, think it's going to just happen on its own, that kind of thing. You know, be rude, expect other people to contact you. You don't reach out to contact them. No shortage of ways really that you can make it worse. I mean, but you know, the NXL is they're pretty adamant. Each event gets bigger and bigger, but there's sort of an elephant in the room. There's kind of a monster under the bed, which is the median age of our sport keeps getting older.
Yes.
And that's not good, right? So I think this question of how do you cross the bridge from rec to quasi like repeat player into tournament paintball is probably, we need to be applying 4x the amount of creativity to that issue. You know, one thing I've always wanted to do that I need to just step up and do, that I've talked to Planet Eclipse and all them, and they're willing to support, is have 8 setups ready to go with, you know, maybe a better tank, a better loader, a better barrel. But I used to think, oh, I'm going to need 8, you know, tournament level guns. No, just start with the minimum effective dose and then just start contacting those athletic directors at different high schools. Because I think there really is a category of kid. It's really more, not so much, you know, how many kids are into it, but are you hitting the conversion rate where all the kids that would otherwise play paintball, have you contacted them and given them the shot to do it, or do they just not know it? Because I always think it's the kid that wants to play football, get kinetic, but is a really too brainy and too small, right?
Right.
Like, you know, like Mike and I have had this conversation. Like, you know, I think he was a safety in high school, right? Because of all the things in paintball that help you out. Like, some of the best players I've seen out here are linebackers. Linebackers need to see the hole, they need to see the play developing, and then they need to be decisive and hit the gap, you know. But there's when you're, you know, I can speak for me, there's no way I was playing football. What I wanted to play was lacrosse. But when I moved from Florida to Alabama, it didn't exist. And I'm fortunate, because I'm sure that I'm way better at paintball than I ever would have been at lacrosse. But it was non-existent in 99, 2000. It was barely a club level, and it was for adults only. Right. But it was like a contact sport that required endurance, but you couldn't just fully muscle people over. Sure, there's some ways to check people, but it's not like hockey or football or I was going to say wrestling, but wrestling has weight classes anyways. Right. You know, it's just not one of those. And I think paintball is one of those for all those kids that want to play chess out there. Yes. You know, so I think there are ways that we can do it. There are definite ways not to do it. I think trying to push people too hard on that first run. I think the joust is a great way to do it. This Hormesis joust, that's a team style one-on-one, because you're not in for a ton of money. It's way more for the community, and one-on-ones would otherwise be scary, but there's guys your level playing, and you're mixing in with all the other guys. And who knows, maybe you're spitballing on the corner and you find out that you want to be an EMT when you graduate high school, and this guy's an EMT, or this guy is a PhD, or this guy's in construction, right? That's one of the best things about paintball is, you know, all the different unconventional guys that stream in that you get to make contact with, right?
The
sure.
blend, yeah.
But the joust, it's like kind of a minimal money thing. One-on-ones are usually scary, but it's a team style. And so the points just kind of come out in the wash. Nobody's paying attention that little Johnny lost us the one-on. Nobody cares. You know, we're there yell at our buddies across the way and have a good time with it.
Yeah,
so I think
don't they play like
smaller
20
format,
some odd points?
it's
There's
like
a
an
lot,
hour and a
right?
half. It's an hour and a
Yeah.
half, just continuous.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and you're just rolling. And so the little 3-mans, I haven't hosted a ton of one-on-ones out here just for that. We did the Hormesis thing, but that was obviously a special event. But I think the small 3-mans, gosh, those are clutch. That's where I feel like I'm the closest to. This is the bridge. This is where people hop over. We have a captain's meeting at 9:30. People blind walk the field. Nobody has an advantage in that regard. The format is simple. There's a range of players, but they're all in D4, D5, D6. And, you know, NGXL, right, in North Georgia, they're doing the D6 3-man division. And 3-man is just way simpler logistically to get in there. Now, there's some guys that I talk to, right? There's a guy that drives from about 2 hours south. If he's got work through here, he'll buy 2 or 3 cases of paint every 2 months or so and then take them back down to Auburn, 2 hours from here, and play in backyards with his buddies. And I said, hey, you guys need to come play a 3-man. He's like, we're not there yet, but believe me, I'll take you up on it, you know? So I've tried to make some entry fees where guys are under 18, where that kid has to, you know, he pays no entry fee. And some of the people were curious, why would you do that? And it's sort of like, you got to invest something into these younger guys to come in and play. Though usually it's a father-son tandem. So I don't know if we've missed anything on that, but I think the high school thing would be a big thing for me, because I think the school camaraderie, they already have their built-in network of 100 buddies that they might be able to pick from, or 12, or however size your school is, you know, and just have those setups ready to go. And 8 EMEX setups, you're not out $2,000, you know, you got enough to make it work there.
Yeah, axe plus cash. You know what I'm saying? So
yes, axe plus cash.
But you know, something else, and I think I saw it in the chat too. Yeah, there it is. You start it. Something we used to do at my old paintball field to get the community a little bit more involved is we do what are called top hat tournaments. And what it was is I literally had a top hat, and everyone would come in, sign up, right? And I'd take their name and I'd throw it in the hat and shake it up, and then I'd pull out 3 names. That's team 1. Then I pull out 3 names, and that's team 2. And I pull out 3 names, and that's team 3. And so it mixed everybody up. Now, if it wound up where I knew some of the locals who played and were tournament players, I would purposely make sure. What we might do is we'd say, okay, we had, 6 people show up, and I've got 3 tournament guys here. So what I did, I put, okay, you're team 1, you're team 2, you're team 3. That's my 3 tournament captains. And then I put the 6 names in there, and I said, okay, on team 1, on team 2, on team 3. And then that way you've mixed the tournament guys up with the rec players, and they go out and they have a ball, and you make sure that it's worth their while, right? Yeah. The prize is, everyone talks about prizes. At the national level, this, that, and the other, I don't know. But at the local level, it can be so much fun to create, and it doesn't have to be a paintball related thing. It can be a gift card. It can be all these different things. There's so many different ways to market it and do it and get people interested and maybe have them come back for more. So,
absolutely. That makes me think of one thing. Bear with me. Who's being really proactive about it that I thought was really smart was John Jackson. I'm blanking. He's in Houston now. He just took over. Is it Outlaw Paintball out there in Houston?
It is Outlaw.
And
Outlaw Paintball is in Austin, but they took so they now have 2. They have taken over Wasteland's Paintball
Wasteland.
Park,
that's what it was.
And they have also taken over TXR Paintball.
Oh, wow. Okay. So in his, everybody's got their staging areas with the picnic tables. Almost every field has them. He's got a sign specifically for the free agent individual players. Stage here. I'll find you. I make sure you get out on the field. And that's something that if I'm not being proactive on that, I'm kicking myself as a player, because they said, well, I don't have a team. Is it teams only? No, anyone can come. Does it matter that I'm D6? No, we want you out here. We love having you. But it's like, that's the guy that I need to be contacting proactively beforehand. And I need to be following up with him afterward. Hey, did you have a good time today? Was anything off? Really? No, seriously, I want to know. Oh, you know what? I wasn't sure to go out there. We didn't get out there a lot because the 3 other teams were monopolizing the time, and I didn't want to push them off the box. So sometimes you got to be the field owner and go to them and say, hey, guys, you're sitting 2. The kids are going out 2 or 3. Or, hey, guys, these 2, 3 guys need to mix in. They need to get you make sure they get 6 or 7 points today. You got me? Do you want more people to play paintball or not? And that's sort of, you don't do that. You don't blow people up, but you make sure people are being proactive about making sure people go out there and they got their fill of a good time. Because once they play 10 or 12 points, they're usually going to tap anyways. If they play 10 or 12 points in an hour and a half, that's a good pace for a new player. So just being really proactive with those free agents, forming those squads, making sure that you have the culture at the field that fosters that, and that the guys aren't too protective of their time on the field kind of thing on open play days. I think that's key. If guys are coming in for a serious scrimmage, okay, you pull that off to a separate field or a separate time slot, or you just say, as a field owner, yes, I would love to have 4 extra bodies buying 8 cases of paint, but you know what? This isn't the practice for you guys. I want to make sure you guys are having a good time this weekend.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well done, John Jackson. That's
Jason
great.
Guy says NCV would love to help with the high school thing.
Yeah, so that's the Vulcans. They're a local team, and those guys are great. I've known Jason. Jason knew me as Little Mikey, so
yeah,
he's known Mike and I for a good while. So that'll be good to lean on those guys, because I don't really necessarily have access to some athletic director's email, or are they worried about liability for the school? Because we've done it through college.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody can get the chutzpah to start their college club, man, did I miss out on some eras. Kennesaw State Paintball, Georgia State Paintball, that was a great tournament. But the schools, a lot of people, the college experience, like Mikey did not take full advantage of the resources that were available at Georgia State, but one of them was the paintball club. And by the time I left, those guys were getting entire setups paid for, their practice paint paid for. They were getting thousands of dollars a semester. I think they got up as high as $5,000. I know it was $2,500 at the time I was there. They'd give you the vehicle and gas for the vehicle. You just show them the receipts. They had a trailer, so your travel expenses could be taken care of there. So yeah, if you're that ramen eating broke college player, see if you got a club at your field. There's some of those teams at like Central Florida, Wisconsin. There's a million Wisconsin teams, so I can't remember which ones, but like those were key. University of Tennessee had one, but it always takes one president. It takes that guy, just like Alabama Paintball Club has that guy, or Jason Hansen was that guy at Insane making one-on-ones happen. You got to be that guy. Sometimes you got to be John McClane, and you got to make it happen. You got to take care of it. You see a problem, if we do nothing, it's not going to get taken care of.
That's how I got started. I got started because of a college professor who was into paintball, and he introduced me to a website called Warpig. And that's when I learned about paintball. And we went and played outlaw paintball out in the backwoods of Mississippi. And I got hooked that way. And that club ended up growing so much that Ole Miss, so I was at Mississippi State, Ole Miss got a club, and we ended up having an Egg Bowl, right? Which the Iron Bowl between Auburn and is the Egg Bowl for Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And we had a trophy made and everything. And, that trophy, it only went 2 years. And that trophy was intended to go between the two universities. Of course, Mississippi State kept it both years, but I just wanted to get that out there. Anyway, so it was a really great opportunity with those clubs in college to get a bunch of guys together and that Egg Bowl event was a lot of fun. Very similar to the event this past weekend where you had a lot of people come out to watch.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to sort of, slay this dragon, but I think just more focus on it. There's a few issues. Paintball is interesting, right? It can be expensive to get into, but as far as a business is concerned, the price of entry is not that high. So you can be in some markets where there's 4, 5, 6 fields around, right? When Prime started, there were none within an hour. There might've been one that did rec play that was an hour and a half away. And beyond that, you had to drive 3 hours. But now it was sort of like there was a phase where everybody's getting their own league. Everybody's getting their own team. So it kind of breaks up what would otherwise be these big community swells coming together, Yeah. I know NGXL, Josh Stanley over in North Georgia, he's trying to turn that into that place that has the full program, BR Factory, semi-pro all the way down to D4 with a league, with rec ball. So I'll be curious. He just pumped all kinds of money into his rec ball field over there. So I'll be very curious how that starts to turn out and how he works this issue of transitioning players from a regular player into that tournament player. Because I feel like that's the fundamental question. And if we're not focused on it, then we're just looking to all just get older and tell war stories of how paintball used to be, you know?
I feel there was one guy who really had the inside track on how to do a lot of this, and I don't think it ever took off. But a shout out to former Hurricane, by the way, Matt Hamilton. So Matt Hamilton has Gulf Coast Paintball down in Slidell, Louisiana, and he started quite literally a little league paintball league, and it was a little 3-man, and he did it just like the baseball little leagues, right? You had the Brewers, and you had the Yankees, and you had the Red Sox or whatever. And what would happen is he'd advertise about this, and these families would come together, and the parents would get together and, take care of the rentals or take care of the uniforms. And then he would supply equipment, and then he'd have, once a weekend, he'd have like an hour set aside for this team to play that team and this team to play that team in a small little 3-man format. And it was just a great way to get the parents involved, get the kids involved. And it was just something, like you said, some of those kids don't want to play baseball. Some of those kids don't want to play soccer. My son, Gabriel wasn't interested in any of that. But once he was introduced to chess and precision shooting, right? That's all it took. You had to find the hook. And I think that little league idea that Matt Hamilton developed is a great idea. If there was a way to market it and get the like some kind of team behind it, right? Some kind of governing body would be fantastic in a local community. Gel blasters.
Absolutely.
There it is.
Yeah.
Someone said gel blasters. Absolutely.
Yeah. That's how you get that's young kids in there.
Caesar Sailor asked, was he using normal paintball guns or 50 cal?
I believe he was using normal paintball guns. Now I'll follow up with him after this, but I'm pretty sure it was normal paintball guns. I'll double check to see if it was 50 cal. I know it was not gel blasters, but it was paintball markers.
Caesar, he says, I think for kids, the barrier to entry is pain. I want to answer that because I kind of agree with you, with the exception of as soon as you talk to a kid who plays baseball or plays football or has played any sport that has any contact, including a ball, including basketball, I just explained to him, if you were playing baseball and you put headphones on and you closed your eyes and you had no idea when the ball was coming and it hit you, it's going to hurt significantly worse than if you're standing in the batter's box, eyes open, adrenaline up, and then the ball hits you. It's going to sting, but you're going to take your base. Tomorrow, you're going to have a bruise, right? That's paintball. Like, if you had headphones on, you didn't know the ball, like reffing is sometimes real sucky when you get shot. But if
Imagine reffing 15 BPS.
I did. But if you have headphones on and you close your eyes and somebody shot you with a paintball, it would hurt like hell. But when you're in the game, your adrenaline goes up. Like, it stings, but it goes away pretty quickly. And tomorrow or that night in the shower, that's when you know you got shot. So there is some barrier with pain, but it's far less than the monetary thing, that at least that we hear, right?
I agree.
Yeah, so, for me, they got to be at least 12. If they're like 11, 10, I'll say you're the parent, but often enough, what I've seen is that kids, if they get rocked in the hand and they're 10, they're usually not ready for all that, if it's their first time playing. So get them in the gel blaster. I've had 10-year-olds do the gel blaster. They still have a good time. The dads have a good time, so that they get to mess around. It is tough when they're like 11, but I think 12, 13, 14, that's the good time for them to do it. And ideally, they can get a couple of their buddies playing.
We had 50 cal. Like, I had as many 50 caliber rental guns as I did 68. I mean, I think I ended up like between both parks, we had like 350 sets of 50 caliber rental equipment. Like, we had adults that would much rather play 50 cal. But to me, I don't care. You want to play 50 cal? You want to play 60? I don't care. Like, as long as you're playing, it doesn't matter to me which caliber you play. And I would let the dad kind of decide what they wanted to do. But I would draw the line at 10. Like, I didn't care if the kid was 9 and dad was like, no, he's good. I would say no. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not going to work here. sometimes I would just, if I could tell they were going to be really hard headed and wanted to argue with me, I'd just say, oh, my insurance doesn't allow.
Yeah,
sorry,
right.
My insurance doesn't allow. So, and he was like, well, it's on a waiver. And I'm like, come on, take it easy.
Yeah. I think 10 is a good, obviously I have a 10-year-old and I think 10 is a good spot. It depends on the kid, obviously, but I think 10's a good, I wouldn't go beneath 10 personally.
Yeah. Like, because I do agree. When I talk about like kids, I'm talking about the 15, 16, 17, you know what I mean? Middle school kind of up where, and that when I include middle school, I'm not even talking about sixth graders. They're probably, I mean, cognitively, they're still fifth graders.
Right.
At least from my experience, right? Like that 1 year did nothing for you. You need one more, 7th, 8th, 9th. Like then they start to kind of like the cortexes begin to develop and they start, you know, I think getting a little more intelligent, but maybe depends on the kid. Well, we have exhausted the show with that. I thought we would jump into kind of this next part. Let's do it really quick. You guys got time? You want to do this next section? Really
I had a question for you, Ryan, actually, that I want to throw.
All right. I don't know if I'll answer it, but go ahead. Ask me.
Oh, we want to do it now? Okay, we'll do it now.
Ask it.
So, all right. So what is it as coaches? Can we do to ensure that return or perhaps that early tournament newbie, right? That D6, D5 player, or that person who's considering tournament paintball? What can we do to make them prepared better for the experience they're about to have for their first tournament or early tournament career?
I would tell you any field I go to, as long as and I've been in trouble for this. When I say in trouble, I mean, I get mad, not that they get mad at me, but I'll give someone advice and then they don't take it. And so I wait until I kind of see what kind of character a kid has a lot of times. But anywhere I go, including here at our local field, I'll go there sometimes if I'm off on the weekend just to watch paintball because I love it. If they ask me for help, or I can tell, like I'll see a dad or something who's a player trying to help them, but doing it really bad, like not showing them correctly. I'll ask like, hey, do you mind if I help? And then usually I've not had anybody tell me no, but the first thing that I start with is stance, right? We talk about here's the bunker address. If you're on this side of the space, here's the bunker address. If you're on this side of the space. And then I kind of briefly talk about fire line, like where you are safe behind the bunker based on where the guy is in front of you and how far most people, and I even see this in all the way up to D3, players stand in the middle of the bunker. And then they have to cover all this space when they come out to shoot, right? So they don't know, like I can put my knee wherever that cap is, right, on the bunker, like if we're in a can or a tower or a Maya, I'll show them, hey, if you're playing on the right side, your left leg should be kind of in line with that cap, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if it's a real little fella, I'm like, maybe you're to the left of the cap or to the right of the cap. And so we kind of talk about fire line, bunker address. And then depending on how big they are, we talk about how to hold the gun, right? Sometimes when they're really young, the gun just kind of manhandles them a little bit. Sure. You know, they kind of fade in and out, which is fine. And then we will start to talk about like, okay, what do you see? All right, now you got to tell that person what you see, right? Just the really basic stuff. Mm-hmm. But really, to me, those three things, kind of understanding where to play behind the spot, bunker address, and usually in a stand up. Like I don't usually want newer kids like laying down or any of those prone. Stay up on your feet for now, but like bunker address, fire line, and communication. Right. The basics.
Okay, excellent. So I love it. I absolutely love it. I like to, matter of fact, I have a tremendous paintball field that's owned by the gentleman on our show this evening, and just a mile down the road. So I have a tendency to show up randomly, and unlike you, I don't ask permission to.
He does. He asked permission, but they can tell there's no stopping. He's gonna make them better, whether if they want,
whether they want it or not.
Everybody want it or not.
Everybody knows and loves Mike. So even the semi-pro guys are, give me the goods. Tell me.
No, I'll do that. I say, hey, mind if I talk to you for a minute? And that's usually how I start the conversation. So I love to get out there and because I want everybody to play well, because if everyone's playing well, then it makes the people that I'm associated with, it pushes them, right? If we're all pushing each other to get better and grow on and move on, then that's just going to improve the sport. It's going to put such a better, field out there of talent. And so, and you never know, you might be talking to the next Ollie Lang, the next Ryan Greenspan. You never know. And I think that's important. I think we should always make time as a coach. If we're there, we're at the paintball field. And if I'm not there with Dynasty, and I'm there on my own time, then I'm definitely making time for anybody and everybody at that field in order to help them get better.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, maybe you guys, one thing I've always tried to do as I'm trying to help these players out is really remember what it was like to be a D3 level player, be a D2 level player, really try to meet them where they're at, coaching a D5 level player. I wish I wrote more of this stuff down, but how do you guys go from, okay, I'm coaching, I'm watching and scouting Berdnikov and Kirill and Sergey and Karsliev, and I'm trying to help them get better, or I'm trying to help Ryan Greenspan, Frazee, Yarber, Barrett, help them get better. Then all of a sudden I've got this, D5 kid that doesn't even hold the gun the right way. Let's go a little bit up from there, perhaps. How do you guys, do you have to kind of turn the wheels a little bit, or do you guys feel like, oh, D5 player, yeah, I got my checklist. So how does that work for you guys?
I personally, Ryan, I have a checklist. Like, one of my first questions, how long you been playing? Right. And you can tell a lot about a player by their kind of how they handle themselves, whether even if they say they're a D3 player, but they handle themselves like they're not a D player. You just start to me, it is a checklist. It's like, okay, well, let's understand where you're at and where we're going, like you just watched them play, or that whether you've watched them play or they tell you, it doesn't matter. There's a very specific checklist, I think, where I think in D5, they're like Ryan's talking about, hey, let's talk about the basics. Let's talk about, bunker stance, or what we call bunker awareness, right? Basic communication, that sort of thing. Why we want to see this, why we want to be this way. I think once you jump to D4 and D3, there's a couple of other things we're getting a little bit more serious about regarding certain things and certain aspects. And I think D2 is where you really get into the tactical and strategic. D3 really, in my opinion, you have to start with a good base in the D3. And then when in D2, you can really start putting those more advanced concepts in. And I think as we progress, it's okay, here's the basics of this bunker awareness. Now, when we go to the next one, it's not just about a bunker awareness. It's about how I play the bunker. And then our next step is why would I play this bunker this way in this particular scenario? And then it's like, hey, this bunker needs to be used this way in this layout. So you're moving from a progressive, what you've heard me say 100 times, foundational training. Yeah. Right. We're just building upon the first thing. Once they've mastered that first spot, then we move them to the next. So,
and I don't care what rank players are usually. Like, to me, that doesn't matter. Like, we have pros in the league, some of them really, really good, whose form is absolute dog shit.
Yes.
Right. It's trash, but they've done it. It's like the bad golf swing, right? They played with it long enough that they figured out how to do it and make it their own, and it works for them. I normally like the rank doesn't necessarily matter. Like, I'll watch and you can see kind of where fundamentally they need work and help. And it's the same thing even with the Red Legion guys. Like, Karslev and I've had lots of conversations about the mental stuff, right? Like, I think that's really the big difference of where I'm going to coach a player is with the younger guys. It's more physical. When I say younger, I just mean less experienced guys. It's more physical. Right. And then it gets more mental as you go.
Yes.
Like, do you think that I'm trying to tell Kirill how to hold his gun?
Do you think I'm telling Greenspan how to play paintball?
Right, like, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not about that part as much as it's more of the philosophical things, the if this, then that stuff, and how in depth can we get? How much in the weeds do you want to go? And but definitely from a foundational perspective, like I try to coach everybody based on what they tell me their goals are. So if a player tells me they want to be a professional player, I'm going to coach them as such, right? I don't care what division you are. If you want to be a pro, here's the things that from my experience, will help get you to where you need to go. And that's the way I'm going to coach them. But again, to me, if it's a D4 kid who tells me he wants to go pro, again, it's like we talk about this a lot. It's the trip to LA.
Yep.
If I don't see him go buy the plane ticket, go to the airport, get on the plane, I don't put a lot of effort into that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little bit different in the fact that whether you tell me what you want to do or not, I'm going to tell you what I think you need. And based off what I see, I like to try and sum people up and make assessments that way. For example, what I led with, right? You tell me you're D3, but I can tell that you're not really that strong of a D3 player. You should probably still be a D4 or whatever. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to teach you from that perspective. So I think that's what's great about Ryan and me and all the coaches that I know, right? Everybody has their unique approach to different things, and you can garner so many and gain so many things out of all these different approaches and concepts and thoughts. I just noticed my wife is in the chat. Dear God. Anyway, she's saying I can't help myself. I don't know what this is about. So, he just can't help himself. He has to coach. Well, I think that's all of us, though. But
Joey, I don't understand this question. Joey Dipolito says, "Oh, that's not the right one."
That's not the one.
There it is. What if y'all being scared to add that input is stopping those players from being even better? I don't understand the question.
Wait.
No, I don't.
I speak Joey. Hang on. Let me translate. Y'all being scared to add that input is not.
I don't understand the question.
I think he's talking about, like, if you're talking to a D4 player and you're not coming into him and you're being like, "Hey man, it was 35. Why'd you go running for the snake down bodies? You should have just held this gap over here. Whereas 53, what are you doing giving your body away?" The guy had no idea what the count was. Why am I going to treat a D5 player like a pro player? I'm not going to do that, or a D6 player. So I don't know. That's kind of what I took from his statement. It was like, okay, are you gatekeeping information because you think they just can't handle it mentally?
Now he says Ryan or Kirill. I don't understand the question still, Joey. I'm sorry.
I think he's talking about Greenspan and your Kirill. I'm still not tracking.
I'm talking about the pros. Got it.
Why be scared to tell them what they are doing wrong? No. Don't.
It's not fear.
No, it's not fear.
Yeah. Shoot.
Joey, come on.
That got Ryan good. Yeah.
I was like, what the heck is he talking about? I was like, goodness gracious.
If the introductory video to to the coach's show
right
does anything, it definitely says, Ryan Gray's gonna be too coy to tell you what the hell you're doing wrong.
I'm gonna be really shy. I'm gonna be concerned about your feelings. That's not it.
That's
not.
No, like,
and
so
it's
you want to be
fear.
pro?
But it's not fear. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Again, it's if Kirill has played the way he has played for 20 professional seasons. And been incredibly successful with it. Why would I spend time focusing on changing something that he's already figured out how to do really, really well? And by the way, his form is amazing. If you want to know how to play a bunker, watch Kirill.
Right.
He is like the picture perfect bunker address. Like when he's up in the middle, you can't shoot him from. You have to get next to him to kill him.
And he knows where you have to be in order to shoot him in that position. So that's bunker awareness. Good. To answer your question, it sounds like if you tell them they aren't holding their gun right, etc. You've heard me say
they're both holding their guns right.
They're holding their guns right. But here's the thing though, if they weren't, I want you to think about this. If a Kirill or a Ryan Greenspan weren't holding their gun right, but they're still as successful as they are, would you go change what they're doing that they've been doing for 20 years? How many times have you heard me say, hey, if you snap this way and you're fast and you're accurate, I'm not going to fix that. I'm not going to come in and say, you should do the roll instead of the slide, or you should do the slide instead of the roll, or you should do this hybrid. You do it wrong. But if you're sitting there going, bam, 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 have you watched Arturo snap? No one snaps like Arturo.
No, and it's so wrong.
It is.
His gun literally comes out before his face and goes away. Like, I don't even know. I think his eyes are closed.
Yeah.
But are you going to go tell Arturo, you're doing that wrong?
Yeah. One of y'all go to Damage and tell them not to KLH out of the Dorito. Like, it's happening. And trust me, people are getting shot. But actually, I'd pay premium dollar. I don't know if Sam, the photographer's in here, whoever's down there, you know, hey, I don't know. Somebody film Holiday telling all the boys to just cut all the KLH stuff out. You know what I mean? It ain't been working, you know. You're not one of those teams that wins tournaments, you know. So tell the Edwards bros, they just ain't sniping like the rest of them. So just put it in the left hand. No,
good man, Billy.
Nah,
good man.
It ain't
Billy
working,
Winfrey.
man.
Boxing coaches teach hands up, but the greats sometimes go hands down and make it work better. That's
right.
That's
and again,
Yeah.
That's why, to go back to the original question that Mikey asked, like, you want to coach to the deficiency, right? At least that's my perspective.
Bam.
I want to coach to a player's deficiency. So if a young player has A, B, D, and E pretty good, we're just gonna focus on C, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna spend our time focusing on C, at the same time working on developing those other things and helping to sharpen those skills. But we're gonna focus on the thing that's really bad, right? But most of the time, like I said, Mikey, I just coach to whatever the player's goals are. Like, if you tell me you want to be a professional player, I'm going to coach you that way. If you tell me you want to be a D2 player, I'm going to coach you that way. You made an interesting statement too. You said, I try to remember what it was like to be a D4 player. When I was coming through the ranks, there was no D4, right? Like there was amateur B, amateur A, and pro. I played amateur B at one event, one tournament, and then played amateur A, and then played pro. So sometimes it's hard for me to, and I've never really coached anything until Austin Notorious but pro. Like, I retired from playing paintball and immediately started coaching professional paintball. And until Austin Notorious, I had done nothing but coach professional paintball. Right. So it's sometimes I will tell you, I have challenges like understanding the younger groups, like capacity, right? Not capabilities, but capacity.
Yes.
Like how
bandwidth.
deep can I? Yes.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I watched Mike last year coaching the kids in Paris, and it like opened my eyes because he made it so simple, right? They basically ran 2 plays the whole time.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. They ran 2 plays the whole time. I coached them 1 match. We ran like 5 plays. Like, I had these kids running all over the place, right? They still did great, but I made it, I probably added density that they didn't need, right? Their capacity was really, let's lock these 2 plays in and run them really, really well, which is intelligent Division III paintball. That's smart Division III paintball. If you got 2 plays that nobody can stop, why would you run 5? Run those 2, right? And Mike did a great job with them. So it helped me to better understand, like, okay, if I'm coaching a lower divisional team, D4, D3, it really is just about, let's wire up 2 to 3 and make sure they're really, really good, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like, when we go to the events, as you guys know, because you do the same thing, you go with 12, right? You go with maybe 12 different plays with options, right? So maybe you have 5, but on this one you have 3 to 4 options. On this one you have 2 to 3 options. On this one so you end up with like 12 plays, and we all know by the time we get to Sunday, we're running 3 to 4.
Right.
That's it. You're going to run 3 to 4 because you may not play more than 7, 8 points, right?
Right.
Us. If you're Dynasty, you're going to play 3 points.
Hey, now. It's not, hang
Old
on.
men play slow, man. I don't know what you want me to say.
Shots incoming. What the hell? Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But nonetheless, hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a thing. If I got a D6 guy out there and he's playing against D4 players, I'll size up. Hey, if you had any injuries, can you run far? And they might be like, oh, I don't know. And it's like, that's the first thing I want to do is get that fearlessness out of the way. You're running the 50. I'm going to be behind you and I'm going to protect you, and just play outside. Don't look inside ever. Play outside. If nobody's on you, go for it. If you get hit, well, you learn from there. And I feel like that's a quick win for a really new player. Is like, hey, you made the 50. That was freaking awesome. And it breaks that seal of like, and then if they ran for it and they didn't make it, man, too bad. They just got you. But at least you had the moxie to run for it. And I feel like that's a win. That's a win-win for that player either way. Like you had the guts to go for it. You know, it's like this last practice, I had a guy, you know, he's not a kid, but younger guy, you know, and I'm sending him super far. Then I learned he's a former Marine, and it's like, oh, of course. I'm like, hey, go to our brick and then jump into their brick. And he did it, and I'm like, I can work with that as a D6. Right, totally. Like, oh, this is my 5th time. Like, and it's like you said, it's the attitude that they're bringing. If they're, my knees, I'm too big to. Oh, okay, man, no, back center and just hold right here, and you just shoot for where they're trying to go. I know it's counterintuitive. Like, man, you want to shoot at a guy, but trust me, they want to go there. And if you keep them out of that spot, like, man, it's a great defense. That's going to help Tim over here run the Dorito side and win the whole game. And even if you don't see anybody the whole game, trust me, that's great paintball.
I'm a firm
just try
believer.
to get 80-20 wins on, like you said, their capacity and what they can do, and just something they can hold on to each point.
Right there. I'm a firm believer that in the lower division, speed kills. And, you know, it increase that panic, scare them, show them you're fearless by taking ground, and watch them just melt because they all wig out. And then all of a sudden they're like snake. And then all 5 guns turn that way. And then everybody else gets shot. So I love it. I love it. All right, man, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed this. And I love the comments that are coming in here. We've got a ton more coming in. Ryan, have we exhausted the topic? What do we want to do here?
Yes. For 2 reasons. 1, I got to go to the bathroom, and 2, I got to go to bed.
Bedtime.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh man.
And by the way,
a gym time comes early.
Yeah, Joey K says, yeah, but damage plays for 2. So.
That's true.
That's
true.
It's risk mitigation. It's not.
Oh, Philip. Yeah.
So.
Philip Middleton says, Ryan coached my son at the combine. My son messed up a play. Ryan was tough on him, made it a good learning lesson, and Ryan gave him a chance to run it again, and he executed the play. Tough love works. Yeah, thanks, Philip.
I remember that. I remember that because I remember I was talking to my guys, and I'm like, is that Ryan?
Yeah, I literally said, I was like, we had a deal.
That's
we
right.
had right here in the pit. The 6 of us stood here. We made a deal when we said we were going to run this play.
Right.
And you didn't do your part. Now I wasted 2 guns. We lose the point. And anyway, he did. He came back later and was like, let me do it again, coach. And I was like, let's go.
There it is.
Let's go.
There it is.
Drew it right back up. Hey, you guys remember this? All right, let's go. And he did it great.
I love it. I love it. So
yeah, that's the number 1 rule of players, I think, is be open to the critical feedback. You know, and that's an attitude thing. That has nothing to do with your skill level, you know. So you're going to keep getting better if you're willing to listen to the more experienced guys out there. And I'll say this, even as a pro player, playing with, you know, great teams, like I learned that if your players aren't coming up and trying to help you, if nobody's come up and talked to you, they're not excited about the way that you're playing. That means you need to get back into the gym. You need to get back. You're not playing well. If the veterans are excited to help you get better, you just had a great point. And some guys don't recognize that pattern. They're just sort of in one ear out the other. And man, veteran players do not want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with that at all. 'Cause what can you do? What can you do with the guy that's not humble or thinks he's great where he's at? Or some people aren't able to hit that reset button, you know, of, okay, I was a starter on my other team. Now I'm on this team and I'm bench rider. I got to earn every rep, you know, and I think that attitude, that ability to go back to, you know, am I still the guy that can take out the trash kind of mentality, get that humble check in there.
Bingo. Not only that desire to want to get better, but being a great teammate. It starts with being a great teammate. And that goes both ways, helping the guy get better and helping him when you're not performing or executing it. Then you should still be excited for the people who are getting the spins. You should be doing everything you can to make sure they have what they need right? Because it's about the name on the front, not the name on the back. And too many times that gets said over and over and over again. I don't think everybody truly understands what that means, right? Because we're doing it as a team. Look up the definition of team sometime. I want everyone to do that because that's what it boils down to, right? We're in this together. We're doing this together. You may not be out on that field, but when you come in there and you build your teammate up and you help him with his pack, you clean him off, whatever, you give him that, hey, attaboys, and you get out and you're fired up, you're excited for him, then that's where it starts. Sorry, I got a little animated there.
It's good.
Yeah. All right. I think that might do it. Mikey, you had anything you wanted to add to close out?
No, guys.
People you want to thank or talk to or say shout out to?
Oh gosh, really like to thank Mama and Papa Prime. Without them, none of this would be possible. I'd like to thank you, Mike. Without that, Prime would have never started without your leadership there. Gosh, there's so many people I could thank. Shout out to Chris Thomas, Jester on the Godspeed days.
Yeah.
All the people that came out contributed, to the Prime program over the years, Griff, McDonald family. As far as the field in general, I'll give a shout out to OJ and Tyler, the other field managers out here in Alabama. Everybody's on the same team out here. We're on the paintball team trying to make it grow. And I would say they're doing everything they can from a marketing perspective, from a reinvestment perspective, from an attitude perspective to make it fun for people. And, I'll keep doing what I got to do, which is just absorbing all the tournament knuckleheads on my side and getting as many people into it as possible. But I'm sure there's more people I forgot than remembered there. I won't hold the commenters too much longer. But we'll be releasing the grass shirt again via Facebook, via Instagram again. We'll have it sponsor free. It'll be Prime. So it'll be sponsor neutral for anybody that has been craving a grass tee, but they can't have the sponsor on the side. A large, you will be getting one, sir. We'll allow everyone to blend in, unless we had to have another Dust Bowl for some reason in Cincinnati. But I just want to thank you guys for what you're doing for paintball. I've always thought this was going to turn into. I always thought this was cool, just as a paintball nerd myself, as a pro paintball player, that you guys were going to be constantly going into X's and O's, fine detail, the mental game, but it's really turned into a show that I think works for all disciplines, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with human nature and people. And it's also been about fundamental questions like, how do we get more people into our game? And as fun as it is to play with my buddies, I want to see some more young blood out here. I want to see some more kids teams with all the kids. So the NXL, keep pumping that. Just had a conversation about the military games. So the young Marine I was talking to, he was asking about who to get in touch with. So if you guys know anybody that's in the military, let them know, because that World Cup thing, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Have you guys been in the pits for that?
We coached it.
We coached it.
You guys were. I was on the sideline. I was a sideline coach with like Marines and former infantrymen.
I had the Marines.
Yeah. Okay.
I had the Army on that one.
You were front row tickets to just. Oh man, see, it's like we talk about. There are certain people in the net, outside the net, and then there's the people harkening back to their days in the barracks or whatever, or the FOB in Iraq or wherever they were. And that's just like some of the most fun I've had, like yelling at people. They couldn't hear what I was saying. It reminded me of the college day coaching. But
honestly,
anybody that can get to World Cup, get to World Cup.
Do it.
It was one of the most fun I've ever had coaching.
I agree.
I
agree. 100%.
It was so fun.
It was. It really was. And some of this, I learned some great new insults too. So.
Oh yeah. Love it. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. This was a blast.
Mikey, thank you. Thank you. It was outstanding having you.
Thank you, pal.
Probably see you in Cincinnati.
Yes, sir. Absolutely, guys.
Yeah,
see you there.
Soon. I leave Wednesday.
Got it. All right.
Me too.
See y'all.
Take care.
See you, buddy.
So, wow. These are the shows I love where we just sit down there and just have like just a real conversation, sitting around with the guys. It's like we were all sitting in a room together, just chatting about this stuff. And, that was a good time. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. So. I wrote down a bunch of ideas. I'm going to create like a thing. I'll post it up at some point.
I am doing this. I did the same. And I do want to, and I think I sent you an email on this. I do want to start quite literally a beginners type, like true beginners thing on BKI. I really want to start doing a thing. And I was thinking about using maybe even my 10-year-old as an example, right? Getting them out there and saying some of the things you could say and do with your children, or, you know, if you find yourself coaching a young man like that, or
that
a
should
young
be
lady.
free content.
Yeah. And no, I think it should be 100%. It will be. I just got to figure out how to, I've got ideas. I just need to flesh them out. And I like, you know, that foundational thing, and we'll go from there. Like we'll start with how to set your gun up. Right.
Yeah.
So
it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yep.
All right. The show has been brought to you by Max Sportswear. For all your custom paintball needs, get Max. BKI. Get into the summer camp while spots are still available. I think there's still 2, maybe. Otherwise, new content's coming soon. In fact, I am diligently working through all of the old content right now, getting rid of some things, making lists for new things. There's a lot of stuff going on with BKI. Thank you to Major League Paintball Plus, Darren Cessna, Tom Cole, Kevin Fillers, Alex Sorensen. Get registered for the clinic.
Yes,
I leave
please.
Wednesday. I have books made for the people that have registered. If you do not register before, like by tomorrow, I will not have a book for you.
Yeah.
I will not have a book for you. So please get registered by tomorrow. Next week, make picks.
Yeah, we do.
Next week, we have the boys on. So we'll have SK and Shane Pastana. And we will make our picks for Cincinnati. I will be coming at you live from a hotel room somewhere around Blast Camp Paintball.
Nice.
Going to Blast Camp. The boys have been there for a week.
No kidding. Okay.
Yep. They've been there for a week already.
Love it.
In fact, I think they played Houston Heat and some infamous guys this weekend.
Yeah.
For Mike Bianca, I'm Ryan Gray. Be responsible.